House of Grace. Susan, would you like to share your story with us?
Sure. I'll start when I came over here. My family immigrated over here in 1961 from England, and it was okay for a while, but it was definitely not cool to be from a foreign country in small town USA in 1961. Not only did you have the prejudice and the bigotry against African Americans, but also against people that wasn't like them. You know, people, if they couldn't figure out who we were, they'd say, "Who's your daddy?" You know, they didn't know who my daddy was because he just got here too. But I was surprised at the teachers at our school. It was Bolivar, Tennessee, and I was amazed at how that some of them treated me and my other sister. It was very biased, and I had one teacher in particular that she would make me talk in front of the class all the time because they would always make fun of my English accent.
So you came to a new place, having to start over.
Yeah, I was 12.
12 years old.
12 years old. And they put me in the 8th grade. I should have been in the 7th. But they gave me a test, and they said I should be, you know, I was functioning on a 12-and-a-half-year-old level, so they put me in the 8th grade. And it was relatively okay, except for one instance, you know, that I told you about earlier, about the debate team. Do you want me to tell about that?
But if you feel like that's an example.
Well, yeah, it was, I was walking home from school because I didn't get along well with my dad, and we lived a pretty good place from the school, so I would walk home. And I remember there was this elderly black gentleman walking down the sidewalk. The sidewalk was real narrow, and I had always been raised to respect my elders. And I was going to step off the sidewalk for him, but he stepped off for me, and I thought, that's kind of odd. I was probably about 13, 14 at that time. And so when I walked past him, I spoke to him, and I noticed he just kind of dropped his head. And I thought, well, it must be the way they are over here, you know, the way they've been put down so much. I thought he probably doesn't feel comfortable talking to me. So I mentioned it to some of my classmates, and I thought, you know, who am I that somebody should step off a sidewalk for me? I was a kid, you know. And, well, they ran and told Mr. Jacobs, who was our English teacher, most bigoted person I've ever met in my life. Next thing I know, I'm on a debate team for African Americans, and he put me on another team that I was up against the high school football captain and all of his cronies. And of course, he picked who was going to be on my team, and they did not like me for that. I mean, I was.
So you were stigmatized
for
what you believed.
Yeah, and I got kicked, spit on, called N-lover, and everything else, and I thought, my goodness, where have we come to, you know? Well, as time went by, we had some changes in our family. I won't go into all that because it involves another family member, and she might not appreciate me talking about it. But she subsequently got married and left home, and my dad was so mad, he took all his anger out on me. He started hitting on me. I mean, physically, you know, hitting me. And he would get mad, and he just hit me upside the head with his fist for no reason. And it went on for a long time. And I tried to kill myself twice when I was at school. And one time I was going to jump off a fire tower, and I was afraid of heights. How pitiful is that? I got so far up, and I thought, well, if I jump, I'm going to mess myself up, and I'll be in worse shape now than what I was, you know, before I wanted to jump. And then I took a whole bunch of aspirin one time, and
well, you didn't see a way out.
No, because I was going to school with broken teeth, black eyes, bruises, and not one teacher asked me, what's wrong, what's happened, how did that happen, are you okay, nothing like that. So I felt not only could I not go to home, I couldn't talk to anybody at school. And I guess back then, you know, it's like your kids were like your dog. You could do anything you wanted to. That wasn't anybody's business. You know, but I kept feeling, and my dad was one of those type of people that he would encourage you to talk to him, and then if you ever did talk to him, he'd spend the rest of the day telling you why you were wrong. So what does that teach a child? It teaches a child to stuff their feelings. You know, you don't have a right to any feelings. You learn to hold everything in. So what I did was what most kids would do. I got mad. And I got really, really angry. I hated everything and I hated everybody, because it's like everything I ever believed in had just crumbled. And my mom was starting to get, she knocked me down one day and kicked me because somebody that they worked with had told them that they saw me going someplace that I shouldn't have been, and that was not true. I was in that area, but I was walking with a girl from school, and her boyfriend worked down there, and she wanted to go down there, and I said, well, I can't go down there. I said, you can go, but I'll stay here. And they saw me just walk just inside this little road. And I got home, and no, he came after me. He came and picked me up at my sister's house by the hair of the head. He threw me in the car, and he locked the doors. We had a little Rambler. And he hit me in the nose. I mean, he basically beat me up, and I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't see. My nose felt like it was broken, but my eyes were watering. And I had dyed my hair in rebellion, I guess. You know, teenage girls, they color their hair, you know, they do the, I didn't do anything other than that. And I got home, and he beat me up some more. My mother knocked me down and kicked me in the side. And I thought, I've got to get out of here. These people are crazy.
So you knew that what was happening to you was wrong?
Yeah.
But you didn't seem to find help
There was
anywhere that you looked?
No, my dad even had me do a psychological profile with a psychologist friend of his to see if I was okay. And of course, I did what any kid would do. I filled it out just like they would want to hear it. You know, do you love your mother and dad? Well, of course, yeah. No, I didn't. I hated them because, I mean, you don't have the emotional maturity to handle stuff like that when you're a kid.
And also, when you're a victim of abuse, often you cover up and you hide.
Yeah, and I met this, I started talking about it a while ago. I think I got off on something else, but this girlfriend of mine at school, she had a brother, and I got involved with him because I found out all these years later, when you don't have the emotional love and nurturing from your father, a girl figure, you're going to look for it somewhere else. You're going to look for attention, love, and it's always the wrong kind. You know, but anyway, I got mixed up with him, and he turned out to be an alcoholic. He was okay as long as he wasn't drinking. And I ended up being pregnant, and I graduated from high school, 6 weeks pregnant. And so I ran away. I had run away before that and ran all the way up to Joliet, Illinois, and got caught, got sent. Well, they had to come up there and get me. But this time, we just ran away together because I knew my dad would kill him, and he'd probably kill me too. And we went on the run, and it was probably a year because I gave birth to her January the 1st, 1967 in Nashville, and couldn't tell him her name, or he couldn't put it in the paper. You know, the name's on the birth certificate and everything else, but I lied about my age. I was only 17 because I didn't know if they'd make me produce a marriage license. I was just scared to death. And he was so abusive, I didn't have the clothes I needed. I had shoes. I was still wearing shoes that I had when I was in high school. They had holes in them. It was snowing up there. I had no coat. And one day, he took off because he used to just take off and go drinking, and he'd show back up again. And I'd just be there, and lots of times he'd lock me out, and I didn't have a place to go. And basically homeless. And I sat in a car one day all day long. That's back before everybody locked their cars. And all I had to eat all day long was a Hostess Snowball.
It happened that you went from one difficult situation to another abusive
Yeah,
situation.
I went from the frying pan into the fire. Yeah, I had no reference point as how I was supposed to be treated, you know, and
And self-worth.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's my work. Everything's always been my fault, you know, and to that extent, you know, I still feel that way today. But anyway, after she was born, we came to Memphis for a while. Lived off of Summer Avenue on Pope Street. I never will forget it. And he started being real rough with her. And when she was about 8 months old, I ran him off. He tried to come back and he tore in on us. He tore the door down. And I got knocked backwards over a laundry hamper. I had gotten a little job by then. And he threw me over a bed, and he was literally choking me to death, and I was losing consciousness. And I remember grabbing for anything I could grab and just praying, please God, don't let me die. What's going to happen to my daughter? And I remember hearing her screaming in the crib. I had finally been able to get her a crib. I got it at the Salvation Army store. Had to carry it home on a bus because I didn't have any way of getting it home. But anyway, I hit him as hard as I could, and it got him right here. And he got up and went into the bathroom. And I ran into the other room because just moved in there, and that was back before 911. And if the people that were there before me still had a phone and it was still connected, back then the phone company had to come and disconnect the phone, you know, pick it up. And I called the operator, and they must have been right there in the area because they came right away. And but he'd gone through my purse and got what little money I had. And I remember they told me I had to go to court the next day, and I had to knock on my neighbor's door. It was like a duplex, and borrow a quarter for the bus fare to go downtown to go to court.
But you did?
Yeah, I went, and I had her, you know, I had to hold on to her because I didn't have a baby carriage or anything. She didn't have clothes. You know, it was just the most desolate situation you could be in.
But is this the first time you remember standing up for yourself?
Yeah. And it was because he was hurt. He was starting to hurt her. And I thought, I'm one thing, but no, you're not going to hurt that baby.
You mentioned that you still feel that way about yourself when we were talking about your self-worth. I want you to realize that you made that decision to keep from what happened to you from happening to your child. And that's an important choice that you made. And you should feel good about that.
Well, I remember God had a big part in that, because I remember being in that roach-infested apartment up there. It was like a tinderbox, and if it ever caught on fire, it would have gone up just like that. She didn't even have a baby bed. I had her laying on a couch, and the pillows that came with the couch propped up around her so she wouldn't roll off the couch. And I remember laying on that bed crying, and I said, please God, if you're out there, if you're really out there, please get us out of this situation. I was just absolutely devastated and brokenhearted and I had brought this child into the world for what, you know? And I said, if that's the only child I'll ever have, so be it, you know? And it was like I made a pact with God, and where I got the word "so be it," I have no idea, but she's the only child I could ever have. But I never looked back. I mean, I just, you know, if that's what it was, that's fine. But the main thing is I got her out of that situation. But I had to run out of the courtroom because they didn't do anything to him. And I was scared to death that he was going to say, well, we're not married, you know. And Bernie Wyman was the judge. And I remember running out of the courtroom with her, and I ran down 2nd Street where I used to work, and I got on the phone, and I called the social worker that I had been working with. And I said, could you please come get my daughter? And I had thought about it before. My dad wanted me to give her up. And I had tried so hard for so long to keep her. And I was a child with a child. You know, I didn't have any resources everywhere. That was back before they had all this help. You know, if there was help, I didn't know about it. You know, nobody, you know, I couldn't get anybody to talk to me or know what to do or anything. And one time, I had gone home from Nashville when he'd stuck a knife in the door right close to my head. And I had called my parents. That's back when I had run away from home. And I called them to see if they would help. They had changed their phone number. I had to call them through the operator, and I said, please tell them who it is. I said, I'm a runaway. They haven't heard from me in almost a year. Would you please tell them who it is? Well, they came up and got me. But when I got back to my parents' house, after a few days, it was like the writing was on the wall. She's making a mess. You're not going to let her eat that there, are you? And you need to get that stuff up off the floor. I don't want all that stuff laying around. And then they had company pull up in the driveway, and my dad looked at me and he said, take her to the back bedroom, he said, and make sure she doesn't make any noise. If she does, cover her mouth up. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I thought, I can't stay here. We can't stay here. So I ended up going back with him, and then the last part was what happened next. You know, he almost, I mean, I almost died. And the police came, well, I told you about going to court and everything. And the social worker came and got her in a Volkswagen, and they drove off, and I saw them driving off, and that's the last time I ever saw my daughter again.
And when you think back on that, do you feel like you did something for her?
Yeah, because abortion was never an option for me. I would never have done that. And I didn't have a right to keep her. You know, some people say, oh, I couldn't do that. You don't know what you do till you're in that situation, till you've walked in somebody else's shoes. But I couldn't have done it without God's help, because I was giving her a chance. You know, I finally got some counseling years and years later, and they told me, yeah, you could probably drug her through every welfare line, you know, but I was only making like less than $50 a week, and 25 of that was paying at the WYWCA up on, you know, it's torn down now, the old new light, gas, and water places up there. It's been there for a long time. But I found out when you don't have any choices, when you don't have any options, you can't make any choices. And it took me a lifetime to realize that, because what kind of a mother gives up their daughter, you know? And I thought, you know, I've carried that hole in my heart for forever, but God's filled it. You know, His love for me is what's healed me.
But tell us about the steps that you've made, and you know, how far you've come.
Well, I met and married my late husband in 1969, and he lived not far from me. He lived in Littleton, Tennessee, and he'd been in the Army, and we just, I don't know, it was just, we hit it real, you know, we hit it off. We got married, and we were both still young. I was only 20, he was 21, but we had 30 years together. And I mean, he was a little bit verbally abusive, but compared to what I had been through, it was nothing. But you settle, you know, you kind of settle. But I mean, we had 30 good years. You know, no marriage is perfect, but we did have 30 good years. And he wasn't, we couldn't have any children. And then 10 years after we got married, he was diagnosed with 4th-stage Hodgkin's disease, but he only had 1st-stage symptoms. And it was a battle for 20 years. They cured the cancer, but it was everything that they used on him over the years is what finally got him. But I had an office job, and I kept, when he was first diagnosed, I was, you know, you're a lot stronger than you think you are. You know, you'd be amazed how strong you really are. And I thought, I got to thinking, I thought, well, if he gets to where he can't work, I need to have a job where I could feed us. And I wasn't, he had a good job, but I mean, I wasn't making that much. It was just office work. So I had always wanted to go to nursing school. So I didn't have any college. I messed all those years up. But I heard about LPN school, and I thought I could use that as a stepping stone. So it took me a year to get in, but I went to LPN school, and I've graduated valedictorian of my class. It was something I really, really wanted to do. And my dad always told me I was stupid. You're so dumb. When he was trying to help me with my math homework, he smacked me up in the back of the head. I made straight A's all the way through. I wasn't dumb. It's just each child learns in a different way. I have to write it down. I can't see stuff in my head. You know, numbers, I have to write it down. Once I write it down, I can do it all day long.
But that's an achievement, top of your class,
Yeah,
top
I
of your
did.
LPN class.
Yeah, I did, and I missed perfect score on state boards by 3 points. Yeah, and boy, my head was this big. I thought, wow, I've really done something here. And then I looked back and I thought, you know, there's no telling what you could have done with your life if you hadn't have messed it up. And that be all that you could be is not just the Army. It's about life in general.
At this point, you were going into a helping and healing profession, and you
Yeah.
were successful.
Yeah, I was, and I loved it. I mean, it was really hard work. I did it for 20 years, and my husband passed away in '99, and I have I got a phone call one day in that same year, because I had signed up on a registry about finding my daughter. That was back before they had Find Anybody, 1-800 or whatever. It was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And I was asleep because I worked 12-hour shifts at night. And my husband came in there and woke me up, and he said, somebody's on the phone for you. And I said, well, why are you waking me up for? I got to go to work tonight. And he said, I think you'll want to talk to them. And I said, well, what is it about? And he said, January 1st, 1967. Boy, I tore out of that bed and got in there and was talking. She said, we have a response from somebody that could be your daughter. And anyway, long story short, she wouldn't have DNA tested. We had a relationship for like 2 or 3 years, but it was basically about money. And I don't know if it was a scam or what, but when I remarried in '03, she dropped me like a hot potato. And I just got, of course, I felt so guilty all these years. And, I found out since then, there's no condemnation in those that are in Christ Jesus. So I don't have that anymore. But I felt so guilty, and my husband and I were so hungry for something positive in our lives, because he was literally dying at that time, that we embraced her with open arms. And he always wanted me to find my daughter. And I had spent, I don't know how much time corresponding with Nashville, because the courts went through that period where they were going to open the records, and then they sealed them again, and I've always been of the volition that I don't have the right to find her. I gave her up. I made it possible for, if she ever wanted to find me, she could. But I didn't feel like I had the right to go out looking for her and, hey, I'm in a better place now, we need to have I can't do that. I just, if she ever wants to find me, she can find me. But this last deal with this lady that could have been my daughter was enough to do me for a while.
That was hard.
Yeah, it was.
Well, Susan, do you feel, what does it do for you to share your story with other people? Talk about what you've been through and what you've overcome?
It's a cathartic feeling. Like I said, when I gave my testimony at my church, I wouldn't talk about it for years, could not talk about it. Matter of fact, I was even in the hospital one time because my late husband said, you've got to find her, and I wasn't ready to talk about it, and it just pushed me over the edge. And when I finally was able to talk about it, the earth didn't fall off its axis, and nobody really cared, because there's a whole lot worse going on now. And I thought, I wished I'd have had it in me then to go back and talk to people, because the world is such a worse place now than it was back in the 60s. There's so much, and these kids in school, they're exposed to so much, and I just want to tell them, don't do this. There's so many of them that they don't know how to deal with. Teenage years are hard anyway.
Yes.
Your body's changing, you don't know what's going on, you're confused. And then, they meet somebody that they think, oh, I really like this person. They start picking out last names, with theirs, and they see their life together. Get your education. Stay in school. Stand on your own 2 feet before you try to have a relationship with somebody else. Because I got tired of being a victim. And I watched all these talk shows, and I thought, there comes a time in your life, no matter who you are or what you've gone through, you have to stand on your own 2 feet and take responsibility for who you are as a person.
Well, I think sharing your story is an unselfish thing to do, to help other people who might be looking at the same things. And I think it also helps you overcome feeling like a victim.
Yeah, it does. And working here as a volunteer, I feel like I'm helping in some way. But I would talk to anybody, any place, anywhere, about my experience, because if it saves one person from going through what I did, it would be well worth it, because there is help out there now. There wasn't when I was going through it. If there was, I didn't know about it, because when I went into the hospital to have my daughter, they fussed at me. You could have gone to so-and-so clinic. Well, I didn't know that. how was I supposed to get there anyway? You know, I didn't have the money, but, you know, we're all children of God, and He doesn't want us to go through stuff like that.
That's a big part of the House of Grace.
I know.
Support each other.
I know, it's Christ-centered.
Keep people from feeling like they're at fault, and let them know that there's hope.
Yeah. But I appreciate you listening to me.
I'm glad you shared your story. I think it can be a help to someone else.
So I hope so. I hope so.
Picture.
Okay, this is my high school graduation picture. Lots of times when you get to be my age, people, all they see is, oh, what's this old gray-haired woman going to tell me? But I didn't always look like this. And you know, like the World War II veterans that have a hard time getting around, you know, and they see them, and most people see is a bunch of old men or women, you know, mostly the kids think that, but then you see a picture of them when they were younger, and you say, oh, wow, you know, you can relate to that.
When you see this picture, you see the stories that you were telling us about.
Yeah, you know, I don't even know who this person is. I can look at this picture and I think, you know, yeah, you weren't bad looking, because I never thought I was attractive or anything. You know, my dad used to call me a fat cow, and you know, when you hear all that stuff, you know, that's how you feel about yourself.
Well, there's a whole lot more to that person.
Yeah, and that person is not the same person that I used to be. Praise God.
Well, I want to thank you for doing this for the people who might need this help.
No problem. Glad to do it. You know, he wanted me to go to Chicago, and I said, wow, he must really care about me. He wants me to go to Chicago with him. That's the first time I ran away from home. And I got up there, and then he left after about a week, and I thought, well, what am I supposed to do? And he said, well, you're going to be staying with some friends of mine. And long story short, these friends turned out to be two dudes that he just met, and I ended up getting raped on top of everything else. And that's when I got put in jail up there, because we were out. And I don't remember a whole lot about that day, but I remember coming around in this car. It was dark, and I remember seeing blue lights. And I think, you know, I could have been one of those cases that they read about where they were digging up bones in a field so many years later. I mean, it's a miracle I'm even here. I mean, by the grace of God. And thank God for the cops, because they pulled them over and they wanted to know how old everybody was. Well, I just told the truth. I said, I'm 16, get out of the car. And next thing you know, I'm in jail. And they start questioning them. I mean, it was just bizarre. And I never said anything about the rape, because I figured if I told anything, they would trace back to him, and I didn't want to get him in trouble. Can you believe that?
Yes, I can.
Protecting him after all the garbage. Well, it got worse after that, but
It does happen that way.
yeah, but I had left that out. That's what happens when I don't have my notes. But
Well, you talk from the heart.
yeah, I mean, I lived it. It's not painful to talk. Used to, up until this past year, I used to have flashbacks. I'd be in the shower, and I would just have flashbacks. And now it's like watching a movie. I'm more removed from it, but I still remember everything in vivid detail. And my abuser, my daughter's, you can't call him a father, sperm donor, whatever you want to call him, he got killed in Vietnam. And that was another part, because this was after we'd gone to court and I'd gotten away from him completely. He tracked me down, and he called me up at the Y and made out like he was my dad, and they called me to the phone. And he said, I want you to know I joined the Army and I'm going to Vietnam. The whole time I knew him, he was trying to get drafted, and he was trying to get out of it. And so I said, well, good, I hope they kill you. Which, you know, I was a kid, you know, you don't say things like that to people. Well, they did kill him. He got killed 2 years later. And then I had that to carry around with me, and I thought, oh, gosh, you know, I felt so bad about saying that. Even though he almost killed me, I felt terrible about that. And I felt guilty about that. And then our church, Freedom Bible Church, we were part of the group that escorted the Vietnam Veterans Wall up to the Lander Center. Was it last year? I believe it was last year. And we were going to go escort it. And I thought, no, I don't want to go. It's bad memories, bad memories. Even though I thought it was an honor to escort the wall. I was afraid I'd see his name or something, even though it's, you know, it's huge. And I got to thinking, it's like something told me, you know, it's not about him. I mean, it's not about you. You know, everything's not about you. You need to go. So I got up the next morning by myself. I didn't even tell my husband. I got remarried in '03, but precious Christian man. I won't take anything from him. But it's like the good Lord saved the best for last. Yeah. And anyway, I got up early that morning. I went up there and I found the guy in the tent with the big book. You know, it's huge. All the people who got killed over there. And I told him the name, and he told me what section to go to. And it was down at the bottom on the end of one of the big blocks. And I got down on my hands and knees, and I apologized to him for saying that. I thanked him for his service to his country, and I forgave him for all what he did to me. And it was like a weight lifted off of me, because, you know, forgiveness is not about them, it's about you. Because you can't heal until you forgive, because it just eats you up from the inside. You know, I had a family portrait that I had made for our family. I think it was back in '81, '82 when I started nursing school. And because we never had a family portrait. And after both my parents died, there was this big picture and nobody wanted it. You know, I have two sisters, nobody wanted it. And so I thought, well, I'll hang it on the wall. And then, you know, I went through that. I forgave my parents. And I thought, well, I forgave you, but I don't have to look at you every day. I took it off the wall. But I could, yeah.
The forgiveness,
Yeah.
you feel like freed you from a lot of.
Yeah, but you know what? My dad had mental issues. I see that now. He was the most obsessive, compulsive, paranoid person I have ever met in my life. And he was, but he was supposed to be a Christian. That's one thing I had a real hard time with being a Christian, you know, because, you know, where it says in the Bible about what your earthly father gives you, how much more would your heavenly Father give you? I had a real problem with that for a long time. But then I realized, you know, he was a product of his raising. You know, he had a sister that was schizophrenic, so there's no telling. You know, it's amazing I'm turned out sane, I guess, as I did. But it's, you know, I know I found out after he died, my stepmom told me that, did you know your dad was overseas for 4 years and his family didn't even write him? I said, no, I never knew that. And I know he didn't like any displays of emotion. I know they went back to England one time to visit, and I went to the airport to pick him up, and I ran to him to hug him. No, don't do that. Don't do that. It's just, he was so cold. You know?
There's a whole lot of hurt and pain that you've had to go through and try and make either sense of or let it go. But I think that has everything to do with the fact that you're strong enough now to want to help and heal other people.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not about, I don't think our lives are about, you know, getting a good job and seeing how much stuff you can get. You know, it's like a journey. Sometimes we have to, I was reading in Bible study the other day, sometimes we have to go single file down the road, you know, by ourselves. But, you know, what doesn't make you bitter makes you better.
And being a volunteer for the House of Grace.
Yeah, it means a lot to me. Yeah, I always felt like I wanted to do something with the House of Grace. And at first I thought that I wanted to go to the shelter. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I thought, no, this is what I want to do with you. So.
This is giving.
Yeah, and it's 44 miles round trip for me up here. So it's, you know I enjoy coming when I drive that far.
I understand. I understand, and I hope it continues to be.
Oh, I will. I'll be here.
I hope it continues to be something that helps you feel stronger and more at peace.
Oh, peace. What's that verse in Matthew? Come unto me, all who are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Do you remember?
I'm glad I got this chance to meet you.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to meet you too.
You're fun. It's tools for helping the ladies at the shelter is for them to see that other people have lived, you know, through those things, that other people have made those same mistakes, and to move away from recrimination and saying that it cost me because I made a bad mistake. It cost me because I made a poor choice. It cost me because I went back into the cycle of abuse.
Mhm.
For them to see that and see that people have come through it and survived it, and it doesn't brand you as somebody that has no hope and that can't make things better.
That's exactly right, because, you know, God is greater than all of our wounds, anything we've been through. And I understand why women that are abused stay with their abuser. It's easier to stay and know what to expect than to jump out and try something different or try to get away, because that's scary.
It is, but stories like this, you know, help them to see themselves.
Yeah, I'll be glad to,
Making those steps.
I'll be glad to talk to any of them.
Well, you just did.
Yeah, fine, that's great.
You just did, didn't you?
She did.
That's a big help
Do you have any questions for me?
to them.
Is finding Jesus. Because I went to church most of my life, but it didn't mean anything because, you know, I'd listen to all that stuff, and in England we'd go to these old churches that were built in the 1200s, you know, and the guy would be up there, wah, 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 wah. It'd be so dry, you know, you couldn't relate to it. And then when we came over here, I never will forget, we lived across from a primitive Baptist church. And I remember this, it was loud, and I remember this guy knocked on our door one day, and he rushed through the door when my parents opened the door, and he threw his arm up in the air, and he says, "Are you saved, brother?" And I thought, what in the world is he talking about? And I asked my dad, I said, "What does he mean?" He said, "Oh, you don't have to worry about that. We're saved." I said, "Well, saved from what?" I didn't know, you know, and I thought, and we had a Bible in our house, but it was like, here you go, you know. Nobody ever gave me any kind of Bible instructions, and the King James Version of the Bible is Harper Avenue. I was walking I always knew I needed to be in church, isn't that something? I took my daughter down there with me. It was a great big church on Summer Avenue. I can't remember the name of it, but we went, and then I got this card in the mail, because I started going every week, and we'd have to walk, and I got this card in the mail, and it said, if you don't start giving us money, or giving us something, we're going to send somebody around to see you. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. And I thought, well, if that's church, I don't want anything to do with it. You know, and I think so many people get caught up on this religion thing. You know, religion is man-made. Christianity is Christ reaching out to man. You know, you don't have to stand on one leg or walk to the left or do all this stuff and chant all this stuff. You know, everybody, the ground's level at the foot of the cross.
And that's the kind of Christ that House of Grace is Christ-centered.
That's exactly right. That's one of the reasons I'm here. Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't be here. You know, because there's a lot of people that help other people. But if God's not in it, it's not.
We know it makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
We see God's little whispers every day.
I'm all fired up now. My face is red.
I see, yeah.
But it's you draw strength from what you've been through. You know, it makes you stronger.
You have. I can see that.
Yeah, it's I've come from a timid little thing. Now I went the other way for a while. It was like somebody look at me, "Oh, you want some of this?" You know, just I mean, I was horrible for a while. I was trying to find my way, but
And
you know.
you're still angry.
Well, I don't know if it's anger. It's disappointment that the people that should have loved me didn't. Because I never will forget when I was planning my wedding for my late husband. This was 1969. It was 2 years after my daughter was born. And the first thing my mother said was, "Well, you can't get married into church. You're spoiled goods." And that crushed me so badly. And I thought, what do you mean spoiled goods? You know, I said, you can't wear white, you can't get married in church, you're spoiled goods. And that kind of thing stays with you. You know, and I felt like I've spent my whole life trying to fit in, you know, with people because I wasn't from this country and all the kind of ostracization that I went through when I first came over here. And, you know, I'm the type of person, you know, I'd rather plant a tree than shop. I like simple things. And I've never really felt like I fit in. Here. since I started going to Freedom Bible Church, because everybody there has been through something, and we're real people. Like our minister says all the time, Pastor Leon, we don't put our church face on and get all dressed up, I've got it all together. We don't. We're wearing just like what I've got on to church. They're just glad to see you, and they're just real people. They just tell us like it is.
Biker organization, Miss Katie is very, very high on and respectful of, and she says they help out the house of Christ.
Yes, there's probably Freedom Bible Church. It's a good organization. I love it. And we had this little, he's starting his own biker church over in Jonesboro. I don't know his last name, but his first name is Johnny Boy. And he got up in church one day. It's when we first started going there. And he came up there, and he had this little Fu Manchu beard, you know, and I thought, what in the world is this little Fu Manchu man going to say to me? And he said, you walk around here all defeated, he says, because you don't know your Bible. And, you know, you have to pray before you read your Bible. Otherwise, you know, you have to know the Lord for it to be able to understand it. Otherwise, it's not, anything in there is not going to be revealed to you. You might get some of it, but not all of it. And I started praying to get a yearning to read my Bible, and I got me a study Bible. And I read it all the way through. It was like a novel. I couldn't put it down. You know, because before, when I got to that, so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so, you know, and I thought, what's the point? And I kind of put it down for a while, but then once I started praying before I read it, it's like a novel. You can't put it down. And I've read it all the way through, and I'm going back through it again. Plus, I read 2 or 3 other study things every day. And, you know, you will be defeated if you don't know your Bible, because you don't have anything to fight with. You know, we live in a broken, fallen world.
Yes, we do.
And it's getting worse by the day. And every time you turn on the TV, you know, they're taking Jesus out of everything. They wonder why things happen. You know, why did that happen in the school? Well, you took Jesus out of the school a long time ago. You know, it's like everybody does whatever they want to, and it just gets worse and worse. But there's going to come a day where every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord.
And if our homes will Christ, and we have so many people, so much pain.
I know.
And our new children.
And if these kids that drop out of school, if they had the home life that they needed, they were in church where they could be nurtured, you know, and have parents that cared about what happened to them, problems will be a lot less. But that's not the way it is, so you just have to do what you can do while you're here, because you never know whose life you're going to impact.
That's true.
And most of the people's lives you do impact, you'll never know about it.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I run into people in the grocery store all the time. You know, I do things that I wouldn't have thought of before. You know, and it's just like second nature. And I used to think that, you know, I'd get in church and my heart started beating 100 miles an hour, and I'm just nervous, you know. No, it's not. That's the Holy Spirit telling you to do something.
Have you heard Miss Katie's story?
Yeah, I sure have. Yeah, I lived in South Haven from 72 to 1990. Then I moved to Hernando. Now I live in Door, west of Door.
So you work in the thrift store?
On Fridays.
Fridays.
Yes, in the mornings. Sure. And I thoroughly enjoy it. Had some great people down here. Had a chance to witness to people. I've had prayer with people in the linen section.
Very great people. Very great
Yeah.
people. And it's just remarkable things.
Mhm.
The thrift store.
Yeah, we get some really nice things in here. Really nice things.
Such a great experience. And, you know, often it supplies needs to the ladies of the shelter. You had to just pick up and run.
Oh, I know.
We've had a handful of children through there this month, the past couple of weeks, who need so much.
Yeah, it's a blessing because, like I said, I wish they'd been a house of grace when I needed it.
It's an amazing place.
It's a safe haven.
And I think some people think when people refer them to the House of Grace that it's a, you know, place with a concrete floor and iron bunk beds.
Yeah, like a prison.
So I'm very anxious to see the website come about. Because maybe that would help us. I think when you go to click on House of Grace now, you don't see much.
No, the last time I looked at it, it wasn't. And I was telling Miss Katie, all the phone numbers in the phone book are wrong. The thrift store is right, but there's all kinds of numbers up there, and you can start going down them. And we had somebody at the, I helped Barbara at the Expo, Senior Expo. We had a booth up there, and I helped her with that. And somebody came up, and they were mad. She said, I had all this stuff to donate, and I couldn't get a hold of you guys. She said every number was wrong. And I said, yeah, she's right, because I've tried it before. I don't know, unless they were, and I believe the number for the thrift store is a 901 number. But it's, you know, it should say 901. It's not a 662.
Brochures.
So I don't know.
Well, the
I'm
thrift
talking about the
store
one in the phone. I'm talking about the one in the phone book, the actual phone book. If anybody got a phone book, but the thrift store number's right.
And it's 901.
I believe the thrift store number is 901
I have not seen it. I've seen one DeSoto County.
in the phone book. In the phone book.
At the shelter. You know, but the small DeSoto County phone book.
But, yeah. Well, it's about as big as the Yellow Pages
When
for
did you
Memphis
tell Miss
now.
Katie that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I told Barbara back when we had the Senior Expo, and then I told Miss Katie. I think I mentioned it to her last week, because it came up again.
Yeah, she's not gonna like that at all. Be sure to put that in the same place.
Oh, I will. You can see my teeth there. That was a partial. Because you see my teeth don't look anything like that. Just when my father knocked my front teeth out, he cracked ones to it, but he wouldn't pay for anything but a partial. And it was, that was the cheapest thing. And then I wore it until my mouth outgrew that thing. It was cutting into my gums, and I didn't get it fixed until after I got married, when I had insurance and could afford to get it done.
People just have no idea what kind of things go on, what kind of hurt.
But you know, you can look at that person. It's like I tell people all the time, kids are good cover-ups.
Yes.
You know, and to look at that person, what do you think? You know, oh, she's got her whole life ahead of her. I'd already tried to kill myself twice. Yeah, because I didn't see any out. You know, there was no, and I was miserable, and I just didn't want to be here anymore.
Well, I want you to know that it's against the law now for any school personnel who suspect
I know.
not to.
That's why I said earlier, can you imagine what now, how that would have gone over?
Yeah. Something like that, yeah, that's for sure. Oh, I think I hear my phone messaging.
Well, I hope I helped.
Well, I know that Yvonne knows what she has in mind. I hope we gave her what she needed.
Okay.
Yes, you did. Let me turn it off. Thank you both so much.
Oh, yeah, you still recording? Bless your heart.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I hope it didn't get anything it wasn't supposed to.
No.